Let me tell you about two brothers, Chris and Mike. They both grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Same house, same parents, same allowance. At 25, their dad sat them both down and said the same thing. Start investing. Be consistent. Don't touch it. Chris listened. He opened a Roth IRA, put $300 a month into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, set up automatic contributions, and started the clock. For the first 3 years, Chris checked his balance regularly, and every single time the balance felt underwhelming. After 12 months of contributions and decent market conditions, his account sat at just under $4,000. He had contributed $3,600. The growth felt almost invisible. At year 2, maybe $8,500. At year 3, around $13,000. He was doing everything right, and the account just felt slow, boring, like watching grass grow through concrete. Mike watched Chris do this for 3 years, saw the modest numbers, and concluded that investing wasn't worth the sacrifice. He started spending his $300 a month on things he could actually see and feel. Weekend trips, a newer car, dining out. I'll start investing when I have more money, he told himself. Right now, the numbers are too small to matter. Fast forward to today. Chris is 45, 20 years in. He never stopped, never withdrew, and increased his contribution by $30 a year every year, just $2.50 more a month each year, basically nothing. His Roth IRA balance today is approaching $380,000. His total out-of-pocket contribution over those 20 years was just over $87,000. The other $293,000, almost 3 times what he actually put in, was generated by compound growth, money that made money that made money. Mike is also 45. He finally started investing at 38. 13 years late, and has been putting in $400 a month, actually more than Chris started with. His balance today is around $62,000. He's frustrated. He's doing everything right now, and it feels like he's barely moving. Same city, same upbringing, same financial advice from the same father. The only difference is when Chris started and why he didn't quit in the early years when the growth felt invisible. This story isn't fiction, it's math, and the math has a name. It's called the 7-5-3-1 rule. It's a behavioral investing framework built on 4 principles that explain exactly why compounding feels brutally slow in the beginning, exactly when the emotional pain peaks and most people quit, and exactly what happens when you refuse to. Today, we're going to walk through every number in that rule, show you what the research says about the psychology of quitting too early, and give you a framework that makes staying in the game feel logical instead of blind. Let's get into it. So let's break down the 7-5-3-1 rule, starting from the top. The 7 stands for the minimum time you need to stay invested before compounding really begins to feel like something real. 7 years. Not 7 months, not 7 weeks, 7 full years of consistent investing before the math starts working visibly in your favor. Here's exactly why that number matters and why it's not arbitrary. Compound interest is often described as interest earning interest, but what that phrase doesn't communicate clearly enough is how backloaded the growth actually is. In the first few years, the dollar amounts generated by compound growth are small because the base they're compounding on is still small. But as the base grows, the dollar output from the same percentage return gets larger, year by year, faster and faster. Financial experts who study this framework describe it bluntly. Compounding is largely invisible in the first 3 to 4 years. It becomes powerful from year 5 onward. Committing to 7 years guarantees you stay long enough to actually witness it working. Think about Chris. His first year of $300 monthly contributions at roughly 10% annual return generated maybe $200 in growth. By year 7, that same 10% is being applied to a much larger base and generating something closer to $2,500 to $3,000 in a single year from growth alone. Same percentage, dramatically different dollar amounts. That's the engine warming up. Now, here's why the 7 is so psychologically important. Because the research on investor behavior consistently shows that the number one reason people abandon their investment strategy is not a financial reason, it's an emotional one. When the early years produce boring, small-looking numbers, the human brain interprets that as evidence that the strategy isn't working. It's not failure, it's the natural progression of compounding. But it feels like failure, and that feeling drives people to quit, switch strategies, chase higher returns, or simply redirect the money to something that gives more immediate satisfaction. The 5 in the 7531 rule stands for diversification across 5 different categories of investments. For American investors building wealth through index funds inside a Roth IRA or 401k, this doesn't mean 5 random funds. It means intentional exposure across asset types. A core large-cap index fund like an S&P 500 fund as your base, exposure to mid-cap stocks for higher growth potential, international equity to reduce home country risk, a small allocation to bonds or bond funds as a stabilizer, and a real estate investment trust or REIT index fund as a hedge against inflation and a real asset anchor. When one category has a rough year, and every category will have rough years, the others cushion the blow. This is what turns a 30% single-year portfolio drop into an 11% portfolio drop. Same market, different structure.
Now, here's the part of this framework that I think is the most valuable and the most overlooked, the 3. Because the 3 in the 7531 rule isn't a number of years or a percentage. It's the number of emotional phases that every single long-term investor will pass through, in this order, without exception. And knowing they're coming in advance is the difference between surviving them and becoming a casualty of them. Phase 1 is disappointment. This is the phase Chris was in during years 1 through 3. Your balance is growing, but the dollar amounts feel too small to matter. You see $4,000 in your account and think, I've been doing this for a year and I could spend this on a vacation. The comparison between the sacrifice, $300 every single month, money you could have used for something visible and enjoyable right now, and the visible result in the account feels deeply unfair. This phase is when most casual investors quietly talk themselves into pausing just for now, and pausing is where wealth goes to die. Phase 2 is irritation. This phase typically arrives around years 3 through 5, when market volatility starts showing up in meaningful dollar amounts for the first time. Because your account is now large enough that a 10% market correction doesn't feel like a $500 dip, it feels like a $4,000 loss. Your brain, wired to feel losses roughly twice as painfully as it feels equivalent gains, responds with something between frustration and quiet panic. You didn't do anything wrong, the market just did what markets do. But the bigger your account gets, the bigger the visible dollar swings become. And without a framework that tells you this is normal and expected, many investors interpret it as a sign to get out before it gets worse. This is exactly backwards. Market corrections during the building phase are not a threat, they're a gift. You're buying more units of the same index fund at a discount, and when the market recovers, those discounted units recover with it. Phase 3 is panic. This is the rarest but most destructive phase, when a major correction hits, like 2008, 2020, or 2022, and your account balance you've spent years building shows a 20%, 25%, or even a 30% decline. Everything in your nervous system screams to do something. The news is catastrophic, people around you are selling. The instinct to stop the bleeding feels overwhelmingly rational. Here's what the data says about this phase. The S&P 500 has recovered from every single correction in its history, every single one. The people who sold during the COVID crash of March 2020 and waited to feel safe before reinvesting missed one of the fastest and most dramatic market recoveries ever recorded. The people who stayed, who treated it like the 5 in the rule suggests and held a diversified portfolio, came out the other side significantly wealthier. Knowing these 3 phases are coming converts them from exit triggers into recognizable road signs. You see the disappointment arrive and you say, Phase 1, this is normal, keep going. You see the irritation and the volatility and you say, Phase 2, this is normal, keep going. You see the panic and you say, Phase 3, this is normal, keep going. That mental preparation is the entire competitive advantage of the disciplined investor over the emotional one.